This is Sheriff Dale Henson, County 47. If anyone's hearing this, don't come looking for me. Don't come out past County Road 9. The house out there, what's left of it, it ain't right. Never was. His voice is cracked and dry as if it's been dragged through sand. You can hear the rattle of his breath, the weight of too many sleepless nights sitting heavy behind each syllable. Outside, the plains of Oklahoma stretch endlessly. Dark earth, broken fences, a horizon that never seems to stop. The kind of open land that swallows sound, then dies suddenly. The tape keeps rolling. You can hear him shifting, the leather of his seat creaking, his wedding ring tapping against the steering wheel.
"I tried to write a report," he says finally, voice soft, hesitant. Tried to make it sound like a call that went bad. Just a trespass, maybe a domestic. That's how we're trained to think. Everything fits a box. A long breath. But there's no box for what happened out there. Silence, a few heartbeats long. "You ever think the earth remembers?" he says suddenly. "What we bury in it. What we hide." Static crackle, fading into distant thunder. He laughs once, short and joyless. "I used to think my grandfather was crazy." Sheriff Henson Sr., he wore this same badge. Used to talk about the Wilkes property. Said he'd hear crying in the fields some nights. Said the dirt moved if you stood still too long. A deep inhale. I called him superstitious. Told him it was coyotes or wind through the corn. But now I think he knew something older than the house, older than the people who built it. There's a sound, faint, rhythmic, almost imperceptible. Something tapping against glass. Once. Twice. He stops breathing for a moment. The microphone picks up his pulse, quick and shallow. "No," he whispers. "You stay down there." A scrape follows like fingers trailing across metal. He exhales, trembling, the kind of breath you take when you realize you've already gone too far. "The first report came in 3 nights ago," he continues, trying to sound steady. "A young couple out camping near the old Wilkes house. Their families called in a welfare check, said they'd gone radio silent. No posts, no messages. Thought maybe the storm knocked out service." He pauses. The sound of the rain begins to fade in over the tape. Light at first, then harder. "When I got there, it was quiet. The air felt thick. You know that kind of quiet before a twister, where even the animals go still? That's what it felt like. Dead wind. Dead everything. House looked abandoned. Shingles hanging, porch half-rotted, windows fogged from the inside. But the lights, they were on. Not steady, though. Flickering. He coughs, clears his throat, and keeps talking, his voice lower now. "I called for backup. Radio didn't answer, just hissed at me. When I stepped inside, there was a chair, just one, facing the window. Dust everywhere but that chair. Like someone had been sitting there for a while, watching the field. 3 seconds. There were not blessed on the wall. High up, too high for a man. Looked like small hands. A lot of them. They weren't painted. They were pressed in, like the wall was soft when they touched it." He exhales again, shaking. "I should have left right then. Should have turned around, written it up, filed it under vandalism, anything. But I went to the back of the house, saw a cellar door that had been bolted shut from the outside. The lock was old, rusted, but someone had cut it clean through. Fresh marks. There was a smell down there. Wet soil, rust. I thought I heard water dripping, but it was slower than that. Thick. I told myself it was my imagination. You do that a lot out here. Talk yourself out of fear. I went down anyway. The light barely reached the bottom. Just dirt floor, some broken shelves, a cradle, an old wooden cradle half buried in mud. But it was moving, rocking slow like someone had just set it down. He falls silent. The tape picks up only the faint hum of rain and the occasional click of the recorder. Then I heard it. He swallows. A sound under the floor, not deep, just below, like something shifting in the dirt. It sounded like crying, like a baby. I told myself it was an animal, maybe trapped. But it kept saying something, over and over. He repeats it, voice trembling. Sheriff keeps us safe. When I ran out of there, the storm had stopped. The sky was still flashing like lightning was trapped behind clouds. I couldn't see my car. I couldn't even tell which way the road was. Just the house behind me, quiet as bone. He shifts in the seat again. I went back the next day. Everything was gone. The house looked newer, like it had never been touched. Porch was clean, no dust, no prints. But the chair, still there, facing the same damn window. He exhales again, his voice thinning to a whisper. I think something down there remembers. Not ghosts, not spirits. Memory. The ground keeps its own kind of record. Statted here, I can feel it watching me now. Every time I close my eyes, I see the cradle. I hear it. Not real. Real. Not real. If you find this tape, his voice breaks slightly. Don't go out there. Don't dig. Don't look for me. Then, faintly, another voice bleeds through. Soft, childish, whispering from beneath the static. Sheriff keeps us safe. The sheriff's breath catches. A single knock sounds on the window again. Louder this time. Then two. Then silence. The recorder hisses. A whisper so close it's almost inside your ear. Not real. Real. Not real. Then cuts to complete silence. And that's all. The tape ends there. But it shouldn't. Because the counter keeps turning. And if you listen closely, if you play it back slow enough, you can still hear the faintest breath behind the static. You left us down there. The storm had rolled out sometime before dawn, but the world hadn't reset with it. The clouds hung low and bruised, stretching over the Oklahoma plains like a sheet of rusted iron. Sheriff Dale Henson drove alone along County Road 9, the road that had eaten his sleep for 3 nights straight. The cruiser's headlights cut through a thin mist that clung to the fields. The air felt wrong, too warm for early spring, heavy enough that his breath fogged inside the car. He hadn't listened to the tape again. Couldn't. But he couldn't throw it away either. It sat in the passenger seat beside him, an ugly plastic weight in the dark. He'd told dispatch he was heading out for a welfare check. No details, no mention of the Wilkes property. He didn't want to hear them say the words again. You sure about this, Sheriff? Ain't been anyone out there since the 50s. He could almost hear his deputy's voice in the static hum of the radio, faint and unreal. He didn't answer. The land around him was too quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed against your skin. He slowed the car as the old Wilkes house came into view. What remained of it? The place was skeletal now, its roof sagging inward, porch tilting, one of the upstairs windows missing entirely. Yet somehow, a light flickered behind a torn curtain. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, staring. His fingers tapped the steering wheel. Not real. Real. Not real. He whispered it under his breath, the mantra that had become a reflex. He didn't know when it started. Maybe on that first night. Maybe before that. He grabbed his flashlight, stepped out. The ground squelched beneath his boots. Not mud exactly, but something softer. The air smelled faintly metallic, like wet nails and pennies. He walked to the porch. Each step sounded too loud. The boards bent but didn't break, though they felt hollow underneath, like there was space between the planks and the earth itself. The front door was closed this time. No breeze through the cracks, no open hinges. He hesitated, then pressed his palm against it. Cold. He pushed. The door opened with a groan that dragged too long, echoing up the stairwell like a voice caught in its own throat. Inside, dust hung in the air like smoke. The same single chair still faced the window. He could see his reflection faintly in the glass, pale, drawn, eyes hollow. Behind him, the room stretched too far. It was as though the hallway had grown longer since he'd last been there. He told himself it was nerves, shadows, the way the stormlight warped distance. But then he heard it, something moving above him, a faint scuff of small feet on old boards. "Tom," he called out. His voice came out thinner than he meant. He tried again. "Deputy Miller, that you?" No answer, just another tap. Then silence. He stepped deeper inside. The smell hit him next. Not rot, not mold. Something older, like soil that had never seen sunlight. He moved his flashlight across the walls. The handprints were gone, but in their place, he saw faint indentations, the same shape, like fingers pressed into plaster that had hardened again overnight. He flinched, heart kicking against his ribs. He exhaled, tried to laugh it off. "You're just tired, Dale. Just tired." The floor groaned again. He aimed his light toward the staircase. The wallpaper peeled in strips, each one revealing darker wood beneath. Carved wood. He leaned closer and realized the carvings weren't scratches. They were names. Rows and rows of them, carved with a careful, steady hand. He found his grandfather's name near the top. Dale Henson, Sr. The date next to it had been etched twice, one date crossed out, another written beneath it. 1954, 1958. Then below it, Dale Henson, Jr. No date. He froze. The flashlight flickered once, twice. Then it went dark. "No, no, no!" He smacked it against his palm, and it came back just long enough to catch movement at the top of the stairs. A shadow, small and quick, darting from one side to the other. He raised the light again, but the hall was empty. Only the wallpaper shifting slightly as if something behind it had just exhaled. He took a slow step back. Not real. Real, not real. The words steadied him, but not much. His body moved before his mind caught up, turning toward the door. He reached for the knob and stopped. The chair had turned, not facing the window anymore, facing him. The air in the room thickened, pressing down on his chest. The flashlight dimmed again. Inside the glass, his reflection was gone. "You left us." It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't sound. It was inside his skull, vibrating behind his eyes. He stumbled back, nearly dropping the light. The chair rocked once. Then, still. He blinked, and the house was quiet again. He says he stood in the doorway for what felt like minutes, forcing himself to breathe. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him like a man afraid it might follow. The field beyond the house stretched endless again, pale and silent under the returning dawn. But something was off. The soil had been turned in patches, like someone had been digging, shallow and erratic. He crouched down, brushing his fingers across one of the disturbed spots. The dirt was still damp, soft like it had just been moved. Underneath his touch, something pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of the ground itself. He yanked his hand back, and for just a second before he straightened up, he saw it. A child's footprint, small and perfect, pressed into the earth, facing the house. He looked up. The porch light flickered once, even though the power line had been down for decades. "Not real," he said again, backing away. "Real, not real." Wind hissing through tall grass. He climbed into his cruiser, slammed the door, and just sat there, staring through the windshield at the house that wouldn't stop watching him. The radio crackled. "Sheriff? You there? You said you were just checking the place out." He reached for the receiver, but his hand stopped halfway. The voice on the radio wasn't his deputy's. It was his own. "You shouldn't have come back." Then total silence. He dropped the mic, sat there breathing hard, trying not to look at the mirror above him. But the longer he refused, the heavier the urge became. He lifted his eyes. In the back seat, just for a moment, something sat watching him. Small, mud-caked, smiling. He blinked, and it was gone, but the dirt on the seat remained. Heartbeat fading slow, static hum building underneath. Radio hum faint. He didn't go home that night. Couldn't. He parked his cruiser behind the old water tower at the edge of town and sat with the headlights off until morning. The sky broke open just before dawn, streaks of orange through gray, light filtering across a landscape that had forgotten color. He sat in silence, listening to the world pretend to be normal again. His deputy, Tom Miller, called 3 times before noon. Dale didn't answer. He didn't want to explain the dirt in his back seat or the voice on the radio that matched his own. He couldn't tell him that he'd watched the house breathe. He tried to sleep around noon. The tape on his desk, the one he'd recorded the night before, kept whispering to itself even though it wasn't playing. Faint hissing, like someone breathing through dust. When he opened his eyes, there was a word scrawled across the inside of his windshield in fog. Down. He told himself it was condensation, that maybe he'd written it himself in a half-dream. But something in his gut, old, primal, told him he hadn't. By the time the sun dropped, he was back on County Road 9, again. He told himself it was about closure, that he needed evidence, photos, a proper report. But deep down he knew it wasn't about duty. It was about gravity, the kind that pulls a man toward the thing he swore he'd never face again. The farmhouse sat like a photograph left in the rain, edges warped, colors fading. He noticed new things this time. Scratches along the doorframe, footprints leading to the cellar that hadn't been there the night before. Tiny footprints. He lifted his flashlight, clicked it on. The beam trembled as he aimed it toward the cellar door. The lock was hanging loose, the chain broken clean through again. He crouched, ran a hand along the edge of the door. The wood was damp, almost spongy, as if it had been breathing in the humidity. He leaned closer and heard it. Faint, steady. knocking from underneath. He froze, counted. 1, 2, 3. Then silence. "Hello?" His voice came out hoarse, smaller than he meant. "Who's down there?" No answer. Just another knock. He swallowed, tightened his grip on the flashlight, and unlatched the door. The smell hit him first, old iron and damp rot. He stepped down one wooden stair, then another. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the world above him were sealing shut. The beam of the flashlight cut through the dark and landed on the cradle. It was still there, the same one. Only this time it wasn't empty. Something inside shifted. A bundle wrapped in burlap, small. The fabric moved just slightly, as if something underneath it was breathing. He stopped halfway down the steps. "This is Sheriff Henson," he managed, his voice cracking. "If someone's down here, you need to show yourself." The bundle stirred again. The burlap fell open, just a little, enough to show pale skin. A small hand reached out, thin, caked with dirt, fingernails blackened. The child's voice came from beneath the floorboards, not from the cradle itself. "Sheriff keeps us safe." He staggered backward, slamming against the steps. The light wobbled across the walls. He saw shapes carved into the dirt. Faces, small ones, dozens of them. Each one half-formed, mouths open in frozen cries. The beam hit the far wall. There, a wooden door buried halfway in soil. Someone had painted words across it in faded white. "Stay down." He pointed the light back toward the cradle, but it was empty now. The burlap lay open, still damp, as if it had just been used. He heard movement behind him, the dirt shifting. He turned. Nothing. "Tom?" he called out again, voice trembling. "You messing with me?" No answer. He moved toward the back of the cellar. Each step sank slightly into the floor, not like mud, but like walking across something that wanted to swallow him. The door in the back shuddered once. He reached out. His fingers brushed the faded letters. The paint was wet. It wasn't paint. He jerked his hand back and stumbled. The flashlight slipped, hit the ground and rolled, the beam spinning wildly across the walls. The faces carved in the dirt seemed to move in the flickering light. Eyes hollowing, mouths widening. Down here, you left us." He lunged for the stairs, boots scraping against the dirt. As he climbed, the cellar door above slammed shut with a deafening crack. Darkness swallowed him. Not real. Real. Not real. He threw his shoulder against the door. It didn't move. The air grew thinner, heavier. His lungs fought for space. Beneath him, the ground began to move, a slow undulation like breathing. "Sheriff keeps us safe." The voices grew louder, closer, crawling into his ears from every direction. He slammed his fists against the door again, shouting until his throat tore. The flashlight blinked out, leaving only the faint red glow of his radio mic. "Dale, you copy?" It was Tom's voice this time, distant, crackling. "You at the Wilkes place?" He grabbed the mic, nearly sobbing. "Tom, I'm down here. The cellar. Something's in the walls." But Tom's voice didn't sound right. It didn't sound far away. It sounded like it was whispering through the ground beneath his boots. "Sheriff keeps us safe." Then, suddenly, silence. The cellar door creaked open on its own. The night air rushed in. He scrambled up the steps and burst into the open, falling onto the porch, gasping. The house was quiet again. No sound. No wind. He lay there, chest heaving, dirt under his nails, the echo of voices still crawling around his skull. When he finally stood, he looked back toward the cellar. The door was wide open, and inside there was no staircase. Just packed earth, smooth and untouched, as if no one had ever dug there at all. "Not real," he whispered, shaking his head. "Not real. Real. Not real." He turned and walked toward his cruiser. Each step away from that house felt like walking against a current, like something didn't want him to leave. He climbed into the car, started the engine, and looked into the rearview mirror. In the reflection, the cellar door was still open. And a figure, small, still, stood at the edge of it, watching him leave. It raised one hand, slow and deliberate, and waved. The sheriff's office smelled like coffee gone bitter and rain-damp paperwork. Dale sat at his desk, motionless, the blinds half closed, a single fluorescent light humming above. It was well past midnight, but the building still held the warmth of day. Or maybe that was just him burning from the inside out. The tape sat in front of him again, the same one. The plastic casing now cracked where he'd clenched it too tightly earlier. He hadn't played it since that night, but it still made a sound. Faint, constant, like a heartbeat under the table. He pushed the tape aside and focused on the files instead. Old sheriff's records, boxes of them, dusty, untouched for decades. He dragged them down from the attic storage himself that morning, unable to shake what he'd seen in that cellar. He told himself he was looking for a rational thread, evidence. But a darker part of him, one he didn't dare name, was looking for proof that it wasn't just him. He opened the first box. The papers were yellowed, edges curled, the handwriting neat, deliberate. Sheriff Dale Henson, Sr. He skimmed through the reports. Livestock theft, flooding, missing persons. All routine until the year 1954. There it was. Wilkes family, disappearance, ongoing. He froze. The report began with familiar words. Responded to cries reported near County Road 9. The rest of the text felt wrong. The sentences looped. Half of them repeated. Sound beneath the soil. Infant voices. Do not open. He turned the page, and the ink looked fresher than it should, still glossy under the lamplight, like it had been written only days ago. He flipped further. Each new page carried a date, and each date ended the same way. Filed. Forgotten. Returned. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at the last entry. Sheriff Henson, Sr. ceased correspondence on September 13, 1958. Last patrol recorded near Wilkes' property. Deputy Miller, Sr. filed incomplete statement. Subject claimed the sheriff entered cellar and did not return. He exhaled, leaning back in his chair. His pulse thudded in his ears. Deputy Miller, he whispered. Same name. He looked up at the photograph hanging on the far wall, the one of his grandfather shaking hands with the deputy. The man's face was clearer now than Dale remembered. It wasn't his grandfather smiling. It was Tom Miller, his deputy, or someone who looked exactly like him. He turned in his chair. The room suddenly felt too wide, the shadows in the corners too thick. The typewriter on the far desk began to click. The sound one key at a time, pressed by no hand he could see. He stared as letters appeared on the yellowing page. D, STAYSHERIFF. He stood up, voice trembling. Stop it. Stop that, right now. The sound ceased instantly. Silence. Then, a faint breath behind him. He turned. No one there. Just his reflection in the window, barely visible through the slats. Except, the reflection wasn't copying him. When he leaned forward, it stayed still. When he exhaled, its mouth stayed closed. Then slowly it raised one hand and pointed behind him. He spun, and the typewriter started again, faster this time. He ran to it, ripping the sheet free. Words spilled across it like a confession written in panic. Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe. Over and over, dozens of lines. He crushed the paper in his fist and shoved it in the trash. Not real, he whispered. Real, not real. The light above flickered, once, twice. He looked down at the floor, the faint outline of footprints, small ones, led away from his desk toward the evidence room. He followed. The air changed as he passed through the doorway, colder, heavier. His badge clinked against his chest, a sound that suddenly felt too loud. He opened the evidence locker. Inside, under Unfiled, was a small box labeled Henson Sr. He pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a single reel-to-reel tape, no label, just the faint smell of soil and rust. He hesitated, then slid it into the old player. The tape began to turn. First, silence. Then, a voice, low, old, his grandfather's. They said it was the wind at first. The crying said I was hearing things. But it wasn't the wind. It was the dirt remembering. A pause. I buried them. I had to. The Wilkes, the children. The thing under the house kept calling them back. Dale gripped the table edge, knuckles whitening. If anyone finds this, keep it sealed. Don't dig. Don't listen. Then the tape clicked, rewound itself, and began again without stopping. They said it was the wind at first, over and over, each loop slightly distorted. He hit stop. The reel kept spinning. He yanked the power cord from the wall, but the reel didn't stop. The machine whined, tape whipping faster until it snapped with a sharp crack. He takes us safe. You'll take his place. He stumbled backward, hand hitting the wall. Something warm trickled from his palm. He looked. Thin cuts across his skin, fresh but shallow, as if he'd brushed broken glass. But there was no glass, just the wallpaper. He looked closer and realized the pattern wasn't pattern at all. It was faces. Dozens of small, smudged faces pressed into the surface. He stepped back, breathing hard. No. The typewriter clicked again in the other room, once, twice, then a single word appeared on the page, still in it, even though he wasn't near it. Remember. He stood frozen, the word echoing in his skull. The floor creaked beneath him, long and drawn out like something stretching underneath. He whispered it again to himself, to the dark, to the air that no longer felt empty. Not real. Real. Not real. Les stated the door, hand reaching for the knob, but stopped when he saw it. The box of files still open on his desk. The folder on top bore a new label now, one that hadn't been there an hour ago. Henson, Dale Jr., missing. The paper was dated tomorrow. He stared at it, unable to move. Then, softly, from the dark corner behind him, a child's voice again. "Sheriff keeps us safe." Steady at first, then irregular. Steady at first, Dale had stopped going home. The office had become his shelter, though it felt less like safety and more like a waiting room for something unseen. He barely slept, maybe minutes at a time, slumped in the chair with the desk lamp still burning. The sound of the wind outside now carried whispers that almost sounded like words. Sometimes he thought he heard the typewriter again, faintly tapping, even with no ribbon, no paper. Sometimes he thought he saw motion through the glass door, a shadow that looked exactly like his own. He'd tried to leave town once that morning, packed his badge, his gun, threw everything into the trunk of this cruiser. He'd made it as far as the highway sign before the road looped. Not figuratively, literally. The landscape folded on itself. One turn led back to the same gas station, the same set of dying streetlights, the same billboard half sunk into the dirt. He tried 3 times. Each time the radio bled with static. "Sheriff keeps us safe." He'd turned the car off and sat in the middle of the road until the sun began to drop again, until the shadows stretched across the asphalt like long black hands. Now, back inside the station, the walls hummed faintly. Not noise, vibration, deep and steady, as though the foundation itself had begun breathing. He stood in front of the mirror above the sink. The fluorescent light overhead flickered. His reflection lagged half a second behind. He rubbed his face with both hands, muttering, "Not real, real, not real." His eyes met his reflection again, and it smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of lips. He stumbled back, hitting the counter. His reflection didn't move with him. It lifted one finger, pressed it against the glass, and mouthed a single word. "Down." He turned away, grabbing his radio. "Tom?" he whispered. "Tom, you there?" Static. Then a voice, but not Tom's. It was higher, softer, a child's. "We're down here." He dropped the radio. It hit the floor and stayed lit, glowing faintly red. He looked toward the evidence room door. It was ajar again, even though he'd locked it earlier. A soft draft came from within, carrying that same smell, soil and rust and something faintly sweet. He stepped closer. Inside, every box was open, the files scattered. The walls seemed to pulse with a faint red glow, like the heartbeat of the building itself. He followed the sound, a faint, steady thump, thump, thump. It led him to the back of the room, to a vent near the floor. The grate was old, rusted. Air moved through it, not cold air, but warm, humid, and wrong. He crouched, pressed his ear to the metal. Voices whispered inside, so faint he could barely make them out. "Help. Sheriff. We're still here. It remembers. You have to keep us safe." He jerked back, panting. He stumbled out of the room, slamming the door. The whispering didn't stop. It seeped through the vents, the walls, the ceiling. He pressed his hands to his ears and shouted, but the sound stayed inside his head. He ran outside, gasping for clean air, and stopped dead in the parking lot. The world had changed again. The streets were gone. The sky glowed a pale, sickly gray. The station behind him flickered, half real, half shadow, shifting like heat mirage. This walked forward, disoriented. Each step echoed like it was landing in a tunnel. The air rippled. Shapes flickered at the edges of his vision. The Wilkes farmhouse, the porch light, the chair. It was all there, overlapping, layered like 2 worlds trying to exist at once. He turned, and saw his cruiser idling beside the house. The headlights were on, engine humming softly. He didn't remember driving here. He didn't remember leaving town. He walked toward the car. The ground beneath him shifted with each step, soft and warm, like walking over buried breath. Inside the car, the dash recorder light blinked. He opened the door and sat down. The recorder clicked on by itself.
"This is Sheriff Dale Henson," the voice said, his own voice, County 47. He froze. It was the same recording, the one from the beginning. Only this time he could hear himself speaking in real time over it. He said the same words, at the same rhythm, perfectly aligned. The two voices overlapped, one real, one recorded, until he couldn't tell which was which. "If you find this, don't look for me. Don't come to County Road 9, the house, the cellar." He stopped mid-sentence, his throat locked. The other voice kept going. "You already did." Loud, then fade. He turned the ignition key. Nothing. The car was dead. He hit the radio again. "Dispatch, come in. Anyone, please." No reply, just a low hum, rising, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He opened the door and stepped out. The field was moving again, rippling like something breathing beneath it. The farmhouse door swung open by itself. A single light flickered inside. The same chair, the same window. And sitting in the chair, a figure in uniform. His uniform. He stepped closer, whispering, "No, that's not." The figure turned. Its face was his, older, hollow, eyes black as glass. "Not real," he whispered. "Real. Not real." The figure smiled faintly, and the sound of children's laughter drifted from beneath the floorboards. "You're late," the figure said in his voice. "We've been waiting." The porch light went out. He ran back toward the car, fumbling for the door handle, but the headlights cut out, leaving him in complete darkness. Then, a flash of white. The world blinked. He was standing back in his office, the desk light buzzing, the typewriter still. The mirror cracked. He looked around, disoriented. Had he fallen asleep? The clock read 12:03 a.m., the same time it had read every night for the last 3 nights. He sat heavily in the chair, breathing shallow, eyes fixed on the dark window in front of him. The reflection inside the glass didn't move. It stared at him, blank, cold, waiting. Then it mouthed the words again, silent and perfect. "You already did." He closed his eyes and pressed his hands to his temples, whispering until the sound became rhythm. Mantra, prayer. Not real, real, not real, not real, real, not real. The world had gone gray. No morning, no night, just a colorless weight pressing on the land. The clock inside the sheriff's station had stopped at 12:03 a.m. again, its second hand twitching like a nervous eye. Dale moved through the hallway in silence. His boots left no sound. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights had died. He reached for the door marked Evidence Room, but when he pushed it open, it didn't lead there anymore. The air that met him was cool, damp, and smelled of soil. He stepped through. The walls of the station dissolved behind him. He was standing in the field again, only this time it stretched endlessly, the sky folding downward like an overturned bowl. The old Wilkes farmhouse sat in the middle of it, its windows glowing faintly from within. He heard children laughing, not playful laughter, hollow, rhythmic, mechanical. He took a step toward the house. The field moved under his boots like walking on lungs. Each step drew up a puff of cold breath from the soil. He could see the porch light flicker, calling him back. He whispered to himself as he walked, the words tumbling like loose nails in his throat. Not real, real, not real. When he reached the porch, the air changed. It felt heavy with warmth, like he'd stepped into the mouth of something alive. The door swung inward before he touched it. Inside, the furniture had rearranged itself. The chair was now in the center of the room facing him. Beneath it, the floor pulsed with faint red light. A soft sound came from beneath the boards. Singing, a lullaby, off-key and broken. Sleep, little one, sleep below. He crouched, flashlight trembling in his grip. He aimed the beam at the floor and saw a gap between the boards. Dirt shifted beneath, rising and falling. He whispered, "Who's there?" From the shadows under the floor, a voice answered in perfect unison with his own. "You know who." The boards cracked. He stumbled backward as something small pressed upward through the floor, pale fingers first, then a child's hand, then another and another. Dozens. Each tiny hand reaching, grasping, blind. He backed against the wall. The flashlight beam danced wildly. The cradle in the corner began to rock. Then a sound he'd never forget, a sigh, drawn through 1,000 throats at once. The floor collapsed inward, revealing a tunnel of red-brown earth spiraling downward. The children's voices came from below. Soft at first, then layered, harmonized into something too perfect. Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe. He stepped closer, against every instinct left in him. The tunnel seemed endless. Something glowed far below, pale and flickering like lamplight under water. He felt his badge vibrate against his chest. He lifted it and saw dirt seeping from the edges of the metal star trickling down his shirt. Not real, real, not real. He dropped to his knees and called down into the tunnel. "If you're down there, I can help you. Just tell me how." The reply came from everywhere at once. "Come home." The house groaned around him. The walls bulged, wood bending like soft clay. His flashlight flickered. For an instant he saw faces pressing through the wallpaper, children's faces, mouths moving soundlessly. He stumbled toward the door, but the hallway stretched again, longer, darker, infinite. Every few feet, the same chair appeared, each one rocking slightly, each one holding a shape that looked almost human. He ran. The hall bent in impossible angles, floorboards shifting beneath him. Every window showed the same field, the same porch light, the same endless horizon. He burst through a doorway and stopped dead. He was back inside the sheriff's office. Only it wasn't his office anymore. The walls were covered in photographs of missing people, hundreds of them. Every photo had the same face. His. The typewriter on the desk spat out page after page. He grabbed one. It read, "Report filed. Sheriff Henson, Jr., declared missing. Successor appointed." He flipped the next sheet. It was blank except for one line at the bottom. "You'll take his place." The paper in his hand began to crumble into dirt. He dropped it. The dirt hit the floor and pulsed once, like a heartbeat. He turned in a slow circle. Every object in the room, desk, clock, lamp, was quietly sinking, folding into the floor. The earth beneath the tiles rippled upward to meet them. The whispering grew louder. A chorus of hundreds, maybe thousands. Children, women, men, all chanting in unison. Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe. He covered his ears, screaming,
but the sound was inside him now. The walls melted away, revealing the vast underground chamber, the same one he'd glimpsed beneath the farmhouse. A cavern lit by swinging lamps, rows upon rows of wooden cradles. Each one rocked gently, though nothing touched them. He stepped forward, dizzy. In every cradle lay a sheriff's badge. Each badge bore the same name, carved deep into the metal: Dale Henson. He reached for one, and it pulsed beneath his fingers, warm, alive. A figure stepped from the dark ahead, wearing his own face. Its eyes glowed faintly red. "You left your post," it said. "The land remembers. We keep it quiet. We keep it safe." Dale shook his head. "No more." The figure smiled and raised its hand. The ground opened beneath Dale's feet. He fell and landed hard on soil that felt like flesh. The figure leaned over him, speaking softly. "Not real. Real. Not real." Then, louder, the chant rose again until it became a roar that shook the world. "Sheriff keeps us safe." He pressed his palms into the dirt, trying to stand, and felt movement beneath. Hands, countless small hands, wrapping around his wrists, pulling him gently down. The last thing he saw before the darkness closed was the cradle nearest him rocking faster, faster, until it blurred. Then, stillness. 3:47. "Not real," he whispered one last time. "Real. Not real. He'll ever," we would say. The dark held him. He couldn't tell whether he was lying on his back or sinking upright into the earth. Every direction felt downward. The smell was the same one that had followed him since that first night. Wet soil, rust, something sweet that could have been decay or memory. He tried to move. The soil clung to him like a second skin. When he inhaled, the air tasted of dust and iron. Somewhere close, a reel-to-reel recorder clicked to life. His grandfather's voice came through the static, calm and slow. "If you can hear this, it means the land chose again. You think we wore badges to serve the people? Number. We were sent to keep the ground quiet." Dale whispered hoarsely, "Granddad?" The voice continued, unbothered. "They don't stay buried on their own. The crying starts and one of us goes down. Every generation, another sheriff to keep them still." He struggled upward, fingers clawing through mud, but each handful crumbled into more hands, small, gray, slick with dirt, helping, guiding, restraining. "You'll take my place," the voice said. "Say the words. Say it so they rest." "No." His throat tore with the word. "Not me." The ground answered back in a dozen children's voices. "Sheriff keeps us safe." The soil convulsed. Shapes emerged around him, half-formed bodies, faces melted into the dirt. Their mouths moved in rhythm with the whispering wind. He pressed his palms to his ears, shouting, "Not real! Real! Not real!" But the chant kept time with his heartbeat, louder with each pulse until it was the only sound. A sudden brightness flared ahead, a single lantern hanging in the dark, its light trembling. Beneath it sat a wooden table, and on the table lay the badge. His badge, clean, shining, untouched by mud. The tape recorder clicked off. Silence. He crawled forward on hands and knees. Each movement brought up another whisper, a memory that wasn't his. A crying mother, a deputy calling his name, the sound of shovels in wet dirt, all of them layering into one long breath. When he reached the table, the lantern steadied. The badge pulsed faintly. He picked it up, warm, alive. Voices filled the space around him, gentle now, almost kind. "Keep them safe, Dale. Keep them quiet." He shook his head, whispering back, "I just wanted to help." A different voice, his own, older, spoke from behind him. "You did. You always do." He turned. The other Dale stood there again, the one with the hollow eyes and calm smile. Its uniform was clean, perfect, its badge already pinned. "The land doesn't forget," the double said. "It only trades names." The ground began to rise around them, the tunnel closing in. Above, faint daylight shimmered like water through glass. "I'm not you," Dale said, trembling. The other sheriff stepped closer until they almost touched. It whispered into his ear, "Then wake up." Everything inverted. He was standing outside again, dawn burning gold over the plains. The house was whole, no rot, no dust. Birds sang. His cruiser idled in the drive. Tom stood beside it, smiling tiredly. "Long night, huh, Sheriff?" "You good?" Dale blinked at him. The air smelled clean, too clean. He touched his face, his skin felt new, raw, like he'd been remade. He looked down, his uniform gleamed, badge polished, no trace of mud. "Tom," he said slowly, "how long was I out there?" Tom frowned. "Out where?" "You just finished checking the Wilkes place last night. Said it was clear." Dale turned toward the field. The house looked freshly painted. On the porch, a rocking cradle swayed in the breeze. "Not real," he whispered. Tom tilted his head. "You all right, Sheriff?" "Real," Dale said. He felt the badge grow hot against his chest. "Not real." The words overlapped, tangled. The wind began to howl again, tearing across the plains like a scream held too long. Tom called his name once more, but his voice stretched thin, breaking apart into static. Dale blinked, and Tom was gone. The car, the sky, all of it washed to gray again. The cradle on the porch stopped rocking. He felt the badge melt into his skin. He touched it, and the metal pulsed under his fingers like a second heartbeat. The whisper returned, calm, final. "Sheriff keeps us safe." He looked up at the horizon and saw them, hundreds of figures walking toward the farmhouse, moving in perfect silence. Some wore badges. Some carried lanterns. All of them had his face. He dropped to his knees, the chant swelling until it filled the air like wind through broken glass. Not real. Real. Not real. The world blinked white. When the Stordias, the field was empty again. The only sound, the cradle gently rocking, the lullaby looping endlessly, and the low hum of the earth breathing beneath. A final voice, tired, distant, spoke through the static. It sounded like him, but older, worn to dust. "Report filed. Sheriff Henson keeps them safe." The plains were endless again. The sky stretched smooth and gray over the dirt road that never found an end. A single patrol car sat crooked in the field, half sunk into mud. Its headlights dimmed hours ago, but the red light on the dash recorder still blinked steady. On, off, on, off. Like the last pulse of something trying to remember how to be alive. Inside, the microphone dangled from its cord, gently tapping the steering wheel. Tick, tick, tick. The tape inside the recorder spun. "This is Sheriff Dale Henson, County 47. The voice was cracked now, stretched thin by too much static. It carried the rhythm of someone talking to stay sane.
If anyone's hearing this, don't come looking for me. Don't come out past County Road 9.
The house is gone, but the ground's still here. He clears his throat.
I think I finally understand what he meant. My granddad. He said law only works above the dirt. Underneath, there's something older that doesn't care what badge you wear. He laughs softly, brittle as dry grass. He tried to warn me. They all did. You hear, Sheriff keeps us safe enough times, you start to think it means protecting people. But it don't. It means protecting the quiet, making sure the crying stays under. He stops for a long moment. The tape catches faint rain on the windshield. The pattern falls steady, hypnotic, like small hands drumming from the other side of the glass. I can feel them now. In the soil, in me. I'm not sure where I end anymore. He exhales. Sometimes I think I'm still in that house. Sometimes I think I never left the cellar. The road just bent back around until it looked like something new. If you find this tape, if you hear my voice, don't rewind it. Don't play it again. The words remember. That's how it spreads. Sound travels deeper than dirt. A small sound interrupts him. 3 knocks on the driver's side window. Knock, knock, knock. He whispers, "Not real. Real, not real." The tape trembles. You can hear him move, slow, deliberate. He opens the door. The mic catches the wind's rush and something else. Footsteps, light, shuffling. "All right," he mutters. "I'm coming." He steps out of the car. The recorder keeps running. For a few seconds, there's only wind. Then faintly, the lullaby again. "Sleep, little one," warped and distant. Minutes pass. Then another voice filters in through the radio. Higher, younger, unsure. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Miller. I found the sheriff's cruiser." He breathes audibly, nervous. Doors open. Engine cold. I don't see him anywhere. A long pause. There's a tape playing. Looks like it's been running for hours. He picks it up. The sheriff's voice murmurs faintly through static. "Don't dig." "What the hell?" the deputy whispers. He steps back from the car. "Dispatch, I'm bringing the recorder in." The field looks disturbed, like something's been moving under the dirt. The tape sputters and distorts. His voice breaks apart in static. "Send backup," repeating. "County Road dash dash." The line cuts. Wind fills the silence again. After a few seconds, the recorder reactivates by itself. "This is Sheriff Dale Henson, County 47. It loops once, twice. Each repetition a little slower, the tone sinking. "County 47. Then a new voice joins, overlapping. "This is Sheriff Thomas Miller, County 47. The tape warps, the machine whining as if choking on its own memory. Outside, the ground stirs. A thin fissure opens beside the cruiser, soil breathing outward. A faint hand, small, pale, dirt-caked, presses up. Then another. Then they smooth themselves flat again, vanishing like the earth had exhaled. The sky flickers white. Rain begins, not water, just sound. The hiss of static made physical. From deep below, barely audible beneath the storm. "Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe. Sheriff keeps us safe." The chant fades into the rain, indistinguishable from it, until you can't tell if the sound is outside or inside your head. Camera or listener pulls back. The field stretches into fog. The patrol car becomes a shadow swallowed by distance.
Only the red light on the recorder remains visible, blinking faintly in the dark. It restarts. The same voice, the same breath, the same confession that never ends. This is Sheriff Dale Henson, County 47. The voice grows quieter, almost tender, almost kind. And if you're hearing this, a whisper slides in behind him, layered and close, dozens of voices braided into one. It already knows you. Short laugh, breaking apart mid-sound, nervous and wet. You don't believe me, do you? The tape hisses, looping on the last breath. Then silence. 10 full seconds of nothing but wind moving across the microphone. A final heartbeat. One blink of the recorder light. Then, darkness.